On the behalf of the Committee on MSME and Startup, I welcome today our speaker, Ruchi Maheshwari, ma'am, and our coordinator, Ashi Jain, ma'am. Ashi Jain, ma'am. Today our topic is importance of the cost analysis and process mapping for startups. So, I request our coordinator, Ashi Jain, ma'am. Please give a welcome note to our speaker and give the introduction.
Thank you so much, sir. We welcome you, ma'am. CA Ruchi Maheshwari is a chartered accountant from the 1997 batch with over 25 years of extensive experience in the banking and financial sector. She began her career at the Unit Trust of India through the ICI Campus Placement Program. Over the years, she has worked with prominent multinational corporations such as American Express and the Royal Bank of Scotland. At RBS, she ascended to the role of Vice President, Risk and Compliance, where she honored her expertise in the internal control, Sarbanes and Oxley, SOX compliance, risk management, and project management. In 2019, ma'am transitioned from a corporate role to establish her own consulting firm, venturing into the entrepreneurial world. Her firm focuses on emerging technologies like robotic process automation and blockchain. She continues to explore advancements in the fintech sector. Ma'am is also known for her inquisitive and challenging nature, often being amongst the first to embrace the new areas of learning. Beyond her professional achievements, ma'am is dedicated to mentoring and grooming young talent. She has led diversity of initiatives in her previous roles and emphasizes the importance of financial independence. Through a collaboration with the social media venture, she educates people on managing personal wealth via YouTube videos and LinkedIn posts, sharing her knowledge and experiences to help others achieve their dreams. We welcome you, ma'am. Please start your valuable session.
Thanks, Ashi. Thank you very much. And thanks first to the Institute and the committee to really pick up such great topics, and as we all know that the world around startups is growing and growing. And as started accountants, we were always, a little behind in terms of really supporting or doing things. So this committee actually has done a lot of work in terms of not only recognizing and enabling chartered accountants to be ready to support the MSMEs and the startups, but also for chartered accountants who are into startup world. Also, I think a lot of work is being done by the committee. So really appreciate, and again, thanks for the opportunity to be here on this topic. So I'm going to start my deliberation. Let me just project my screen first and my presentation. Okay. So before we go on to the topic, I hope everybody is able to see the screen there. The topic today that we're going to cover is importance of cost analysis and process mapping for startups. Again, we all know that startup world is growing and everything's happening, but I think there are this subject around cost analysis and process mapping is very key, but is really missed out. So it was really an required topic, not only from people who are running startups, but also for chartered accountants. If they are supporting startups or MSMEs, then this is an area which they can kind of take up for additional work. Or if they're consulting or supporting startups, even from an audit perspective, then this is an additional area of revenue for them. This, if we kind of go through it and support, then definitely we will. And that's why the tagline that I've put is enhance efficiency and growth with strategic insights. A chartered accountant being an all composite person from a finance knowledge perspective, he can definitely help and support the growing organizations, and he can help bring in efficiency and growth with his strategic insight from a financial perspective. And as I always say, finance, chartered accountants are not only finance, they are beyond finance. And this is one of the aspects which definitely helps them to go beyond and do over expectations for their own clients and customers. Okay, so let me start up. So if you talk about the Indian ecosystem, and I'm sure we all hear this word startup, and I'm sure you all will recognize that in when we were kids, or when we were even our children, or while we were in school, we always used to talk of some profession that we'll go up and become. But in today's time, if you ask any of the school students, what do you want to become? He will always say, I want to become a founder, right? He will always say that I want to do a startup. I want to make my company go, so many billions, millions, trillions is what they'll all talk about, and contribute to the economy, which is not something that we would do when we were in school. I just thought we should just share an idea around the startup ecosystem in India. We all know that India, from a startup ecosystem perspective, we rank around among the top 5 countries which are really contributing in terms of the whole startup ecosystem, right? And that's really a great space where we have more than 200 companies, 200 countries across the world. If we are among the top 5, so imagine where we are from a overall system perspective. The diverse startups that we all hold from an India perspective is we have startups in the healthcare, education, finance, software, various other things. And even now we've expanded into fintechs. These are the new areas, right? Fintech, health tech, ed tech, SaaS platforms, and you would have um, Indian founders running such startups, which a lot of other high, GDP growth countries would also not be doing. So that's really a feather in the cap for India as an example. We have large number of unicorns. So I'm sure you all understand, right? Unicorns are or startups which have a valuation of over 1 billion. So in India, every year you have good number of startups which convert into unicorns. Again, I'm not going to talk about the flip side because I know that there are so many startups which close down also within the first 2 years of operations. But we'll talk about the good side only in this conversation. Okay, we've seen that even the Indian government has taken a lot of initiatives, right? The Digital India concept, the Startup India concept, these are all initiatives taken by the Indian government to help support the startup ecosystem within India. We see a lot of foreign investment coming in, the VC funding coming in, right? You name any of the big VC fund houses which actually existed only in the US have, or as we say, the what to say, the Silicon Valley, all exists in India even now and have investments in India, in Indian startups. So that's like a great thing, which actually recognizes the brain that India holds in. So that's an overview about the startup ecosystem. Again, this was just a list of the startups that we know, and I'm sure there is space for more to kind of come in. So more names, but I think less of space that I could put here. We have so many of them, and I'm sure you would have used them, or you may be kind of associated with them in some way or the other. But the list is endless, right? And every day there is a new coming in. So endless list. But I really fascinate with the fact that we have so many startups, and we have such names which globally people recognize and own. If you go, for example, one of the big names, as we all know, Farm Easy, if I have to talk about, or Off Business, if I have to talk about, Zomato, all of these companies started as small, but now today they are all listed on the stock exchanges. They have their own IPOs coming over. Swiggy just closed, we all know, right? Ola's been there, Ola Electrics actually come in, and various others. So it's really a nice and a proud moment for Indians to be in such an ecosystem. Moving ahead, again, if I have to talk about just a basic about the startup overall demographics. So we all know that, and even the analytics say that at least 72% of the founders are less than 35 years old. That's where the major category of people are. But the point that I wanted to bring here was not about, the age or the gender gap, because that's a different topic. That's not one of what we're going to touch upon. I think what I was wanting to touch upon here is on the education side, right? Majorly, if we actually, talk about founders, we would always find founders which will be tagged as IIT IIMs. That's the majority of founders that you would see. So maybe engineering graduates, if I have to say. IITs definitely are the bigger contributors, but definitely other engineering graduates have also done good jobs. Like, as an example, Paytm is done by an engineering graduate from Delhi College of Engineering, as an example. He's not an IIT guy. Right. But what I mean to say is major component of at least 50% of our founders, 50-60% of our founders would be MBAs or engineering background and MBAs. We would have very less component of people, founders, who would be coming from a finance background. Again, it doesn't mean we don't have. We definitely have a lot of CA founders also. I'm sure boat founder everybody knows now, right? Because of the Shark Tank that he comes in always. But otherwise, the reason why I wanted to bring this out from an education standpoint, that we have startups more with finance, not in finance field, is which shows that why people really lack on understanding the financial concepts. And that's where the chartered accountants would play a key role to guide those founders to be taking advantage of the services and the extensive knowledge that a chartered accountant can give for their organizations, right? And that's the reason I just thought to highlight this. Okay. Now coming on to when a startup really starts, what's the objective or the goal that they really maintain, right? And why do they really create a startup? So one basic fact which I've not captured here is definitely a startup is working to resolve some of your common day issues, right? Which is what they normally say, that you can have a startup if you really know what the problem is and you want to solve that problem. That is the basic genesis of forming a startup. But other than that, the main objectives with which the founders really work is they want to really create a brand, right? The objective is that within the next maybe of initiation, in the next 3 years, they would want to focus upon like creating a brand, increased customer base. Like today, I'm with 0 customers, but maybe in 6 months, I can show that I've gone up to 50 customers, then from 50 to 500 directly, and maybe from 500 to 5,000 customers. That's the kind of exponential growth they always focus upon from a customer base perspective, right? And definitely linked to the customer base will be your sales growth. Because if you have an extensive customer base, you will definitely have higher sales growth. Again, repeated customers and all of that is secondary that we'll talk about. And that's not the focus of conversation today, but these are some of the objectives that they work upon, right? Again, they build a good team, a best team, which will help them support. So the objective is to hire the right candidates, whether at it's whatever levels, a senior level, mid senior level, or maybe junior level, but competent people who can help support take the objective of the startup to the phase that it's been planned for. Again, they focus a lot on marketing from a brand creation perspective, because you can create a brand when you have a good marketing strategy. So that's like hand in hand kind of a thing that keeps going. And end of the day, again, because startups either are seed funded or are funded by venture capitalists and various other things. So therefore, their other aspect is what is the return that I'm giving a shareholder. That's the key areas that they work with. Again, if you see whatever points that we've talked upon, they will have some financial impact, but that's not their financial. Uh, uh, I would say, like, financial acumen is not their first objective. That's how they normally go with, right? And a regular focus of any startup, a founder, if I have to specifically say, will be on your primitive areas or regular areas. For I consult a couple of startups on such matters, and I think I would say, yeah, roughly 90% of my own consulting founders are basically either engineering background with an IIM, a basic engineering with an IIM, or an IIT IIM combination is what I have also. And when I talk to them, the way I see them is they feel, okay, we are having a chartered accountant, which means he will help us support, he or she will help us support in terms of the accounting, auditing, GST, direct taxation, or maybe from a bank funding perspective, to help me understand my ROC compliances, or if I need a certification to be given for maybe the banks or for my shareholders or various other things, that's where they kind of just work upon and focus upon only. You, during the conversation when we have with them, that's when we realize that they have no idea about the value added services a chartered accountant can really offer, right? And these services are something which are very key for from a startup perspective. From a startup perspective, because it's very nascent, the startup is really growing today. It's just conceptualized from a theory perspective. It has thought in terms of what product needs to be or a service needs to be, and it is actually getting people together and to start delivering it. But at each and every stage, what is important to understand is what is the cost that we are giving. Is this cost right? Because if I'm too heavy on a cost, then indirectly I am impacting my profit, right? So if I'm earning a revenue of say 100 rupees and my cost is already 80 rupees, which means that my profit will be 20 rupees. But if I can optimize my cost, which means if I can bring my cost down to from 80 to say 60 or 50, that's when I will enhance my profitability, right? So cost analysis is a very, very important aspect which a lot of people don't focus. Only when they start or they're into troubles or when they actually are seeing, negative growth trends, that's when they start asking you a question as a chartered accountant saying that, yeah, why am I not earning profits? What's going wrong? Can you just help me? And that's when, as chartered accountants, you would step in and you will say, have you really looked at your cost? Have you budgeted well? Have you planned well? All of those things will then come in. So the value added services as chartered accountants we can give is definitely cost analysis, risk management, process mapping. And I'm going to touch upon two aspects today because that's very key, and I think basic. It should start as early as possible for a startup. And that's why I've just captured both those topics today. Again, if we get an opportunity, we will cover risk management, control assurance, FP&A, and MIS also in our future topics at times. But these are some of the value added services which, as chartered accountants, you guys need to offer to your startup or MSME guys whom you're supporting. Or if you're running your own startups, then definitely it is important for startup founders to focus on these aspects and engage with a chartered accountant so that they are able to actually reap the benefits and run their own organization in the right, I would say growth phase, and not get challenged by tough times, as an example. Okay, so this is very, very important for all of us to understand. Okay, now a bit of introduction about what is really cost analysis and also process mapping. We've talked of two different things, and people who really use it would say they're two different aspects. The reason I've taken them together is because I feel they're very interlinked. Your cost analysis also helps you from a process mapping perspective. And when you do your process mapping, a lot of things really come out which help you in terms of your cost analysis also. Okay, and we'll cover those aspects as we go forward, but I just thought I'll just give a highlight around it at the moment. Okay, talking about cost analysis, as the word suggests, here it's about deep diving and looking at all types of costs that you do. So if I have to read a bookish definition, it is a process of evaluating all costs associated with operations to improve decision making. Okay, when we talk about all costs, here we are talking about all costs. which means direct costs, indirect costs, whether it's your marketing cost, whether it's your travel cost, whether it's your raw material cost, whether it's any kind of a cost, whether it is, directly proportionate to the product or the services you do, or it is indirectly proportionate. It would also mean cost of capital as an example. It would mean understanding at what rate is the funding that you're receiving. Is that something that is good for your own company profile perspective? Do you have a risk appetite to go with a high cost fund that you are now going in for, as an example? It will also mean about foreign exchange costs that you have, anything, fluctuation costs or anything that's there. The reason why it's important is because it gives you an end-to-end understanding of the costs that are involved within each of the processes. Because at times I've understood that people forget taking a lot of costs. And I've seen that with the clients that I work for. And I've actually told them, and they were like surprised. Oh, I'm sorry, we thought this is automatically adjusted, and you have to kind of tell your client, handhold them at times, and say, uh, you know, where did you take it? How could you assume that it is being included? So if it's a product cost, as an example, you have to sit down with your client and say, put the product in front of me, show me which costs have you included, where have you included, what proportion have you included, why have you not taken it at this level? And that's the exercise that really helps, and it's an eye opener for the founders also, as I said. Let me take a live example. I am working with one of our clients, which actually produces a product. And when I started with them, they just told me that, we are good enough, we earn a contribution margin of around 50. And then that's over, the overhead costs are there and various other things. And finally, we end up with a profit of around 7% in total. So we're good enough. I think now it's the founder's view was we're good with 7%, but I think as we grow and we scale, I think we should go from 7 to 15% at least. 7 to 14 first, and that's all. But when we sat down and we really saw from the financials perspective, the effective profit that was coming out was only 4%. So there was like a 3% drop of profit, which none of them ever realized that this is the gap that existed. And that was because some costs were not built in. And they were like hidden costs, which were hampering at an holistic level. And they assumed that it is not part of the direct cost. So the contribution margins were higher, but the final net profit was much lower. And when it was adjusted, they really found out the sale costing that they had done was not correct. And hence I'm saying that these are practical reasons where we found out. Okay, cost analysis also helps in understanding or identifying the wasteful expenditures, right? It actually identifies that how many times a travel was being done, as an example, which could have been avoided, one case. Or it helps you identify things like, why were raw materials not brought in from an economic order quantity, right? Because there was freight involved into it. There was effort and time involved into it. So again, wasteful expenditure because you did not have an economic order quantity to defined at the time of raising your purchase orders for raw material. So again, wasteful expenditures really come out when you sit and do this analysis. And once you do the analysis, definitely you do a lot of cost optimization. So cost analysis holistically helps and supports in wide areas for an organization. And especially, as I say, even a penny of, a penny out of $1 saving helps from an organization which does not have too much volume and, I would say, overall cost perspective. So definitely anything saved is anything earned, is as we say in a normal language. Now coming on to process mapping. Okay. So what is process mapping? You would all say process mapping is nothing but a process bana diya, end to end bana diya, dekh liya. No, I think a process mapping is very critical, because when you sit down and map your process. Okay, so let me first touch upon what's a definition of process mapping. So process mapping is a visual representation of a process or a flow that shows the steps, inputs, outputs, decision making points that are involved within that activity. Okay. Process maps are created which help the team to identify what are the challenges areas. Okay, it also identifies in terms of really putting down the steps, because half the time I've noticed that teams even don't know that an additional activity is happening within the team, which was not really required. So if I have to say, just take an example, you have to go to meet a person as an example, and that person stays on maybe the second floor of an apartment. Okay. Since you don't know, you first go to the third floor. Then from there, you're being told to go to the fifth floor. And then from the fifth floor, you're told, no, you have to go to the first floor. And that's why you waste your time and energy from first entering the building, going to the third floor, from the third floor going to the fifth floor, and then coming to the first floor. If you really knew what you wanted, you would have directly gone to the first floor and saved your time and energy of going to the third and the fifth floor. Again, wasteful process steps of the third and the fifth floor. If again that learning is not incorporated in the business or the process, every person within your team who will then go to meet the person will then follow the same step. You have to first go to the third floor, then go to the fifth floor, and then come to the first. So, which means end of the day, wastage of time and effort. And this happens within actual business processes. Okay. And when you start doing the process mapping, you will get an idea that the teams who are doing the process will tell you of some steps, which is like going round in circles. And you will say, why can't you just touch from here to here? Why are you going from step 3 to step 5 to step 7, then step 6, and then coming back to step 5? Why can't we go in a chronological order? And this will happen when you start using these tools. Okay, so process mapping definitely gives us a holistic view, tells us the time. Again, in a process map, it can depend upon you, what you want to capture. Do you want to capture the flow? You want to capture the time and effort? You want to capture the actions being done? You want to map it with the SOP that's being created? There's numerous levels of deep dives that you can do within the process mapping, which will help the business. Okay, and we'll touch upon a bit of it here as we go forward. Okay, but I'm sure this gives you an insight in terms of how important and how valuable this activity of cost analysis and process mapping can be for businesses. And again, we're talking about startups and MSMEs, but the same can be done for even established organizations who've been into business for long and are facing issues. Even if they're not facing issues, just to kind of see whether they're running the right processes or for optimization within their own processes. So these things can be used. Okay. The reason why we're really talking about startups and why do these people need it is because, one, startups, as we all know, are always challenged with time and resources. Again, जैसे हम हिंदी में बोलते हैं पैसे कम है and काम ज़्यादा है types वाला. So same thing for startups. I've seen they're always time challenged. They have lots to do, and they have challenges in terms of money. So if I have to say that why cost analysis should be done, this could also be an indicator for you to understand that whether your client is really looking for a need, or is there a need for you to pitch for a cost analysis aspect for them. So cost analysis actually supports good financial decision, planning and strategic decision making. if you've done a good cost analysis, then definitely your budgeting process will be good, right? You will not be giving extra budgets to your teams. You can tighten the budgets that are there, or you can use that extra money coming on from one project to another project. Something that may be more critical can get the money. Right now, maybe as a founder, you've been pushing that activity away because of fund challenges. But now, because cost analysis will help you support from cost optimization, definitely you can then better utilize it. Okay. Again, cost analysis will not only help you control costs, but also help you reduce costs. And that's why, focus on cost, I feel is very, very important. And I'm sure you will all agree, as important it is to grow revenue, it is also important to cut costs, right? Ideally speaking, I don't know whether we should say cut cost or optimize cost, because cutting is not the solution, but optimizing is the solution. Indirectly, when we do a good cost analysis and put in right stuff, we will definitely improve the profitability of the startup, or the company that we are reviewing for. Right? It will help us set the benchmarks. And then we know where we can go through forward, right? What's the negotiation levels? If you have, a good supply chain procurement person, then he knows where, what he has to source things for, right? What could be the levels, the range in which he can kind of work on. And end of the day, if you take right decisions, then if you do your good cost management, then definitely decision making is part and parcel of the whole process. So that goes hand in hand. Now, if you talk about process mapping, why really process mapping is needed? Process mapping definitely, as we talked about, since you get a whole bird's eye view of the whole process that's there, right, which is causing an issue as an example, then it gives you an overall operational clarity. You know what's happening within the process. Some things, if were not working, why they're not working, which activity is taking too much time, right? Can you either split that activity between people? Have we clubbed too many activities within one process step, as an example? So overall, like a complete operational clarity is received. And again, process mapping, just to kind of put in a caveat here, is not done at an organization level. You will have to break that and work down within each and every department. And we'll talk about how to select processes, or which processes should be selected and why they should be selected. Reason why it's always good to do things at the start, and especially for MSMEs and startups, because they're in a growing phase. They're still not grown to the level. It's like, as I say, it's like these are seeds which have just been planted and started to give a sapling. So at the sapling stage, if you kind of control or review them, then definitely the discipline comes in. One, a habit is built, and definitely when they grow to really being a plant and a tree, they are in a much organized manner, right? They know what to do. That culture is already there, that discipline is there. So hence, process mapping is important, and they will the founders will really like and initiate the activity. Again, the challenges we'll discuss, but yes, I know it's sometimes very difficult to get handhold of these founders, because actually they're doing multiple tasks. They want themselves present in a lot of these activities, and hence it's sometimes difficult to get their time and effort. But again, the other thing that I've noticed about founders is they're very dedicated. If they get hooked onto a concept, then they will execute it to the end. They will ensure that this happens in the right manner. Okay, coming back to process mapping, as I said. So process mapping definitely brings in a good operational clarity. It actually identifies the inefficiencies. You will know the kind of lethargy that's there within the process. An activity, when you do process mapping, we've identified that some activity which could really be done in maybe manufacturing, as an example, a product manufacturing, as an example, which could be done, say, maybe, in 30 minutes or maybe 40 minutes, was happening in 2 hours. And when we sat down and we understood that what was it, it was just lethargy. It was just reason why that time was being spent, and the number of days of production went higher, and hence the cost of production was going higher. And this is another example which we can say why process mapping and cost analysis go hand in hand at times. Okay. When we do process mapping, we identify these inefficiencies, and indirectly they contribute to improving the process productivity. An example I already shared, wherein you can enhance the time saved in creation of a product, as an example. Okay, we identify the risks here. And again, when you identify, you also mitigate the risk. You just can't identify and leave them there. So indirectly, process mapping also helps in terms of risk management within the process. Okay, it helps in terms of employee education and training, right? Very easy. Give a process map. So your SOP and process maps, again, can be worked together. A detailed SOP can be done basis the process mapping. Trainings can be helped based on each activity within the process. Okay, communication, again, to your team, if you're working and you have, X number of people who are part of your team, if you kind of have a very clear process map, then you have a good and a standard communication for all of them. Again, good use of resources. You know how many people to be used at what time, which shift, and various other things. So, that's really why process mapping and cost analysis is needed in any organization, whether it's a startup or whether it's a full-fledged organization, right? Getting into cost analysis, if I have to talk about, tools and techniques, yes, we'll cover, but I think let me just see. Okay. Before we get into the tools and analysis techniques that are available, I think what's important is really how will you do the cost analysis, right? Because to convince your founder or maybe any of the persons, it's important that they understand it, right? And as a CA, if you are an auditor for them, as an example, you can automatically pick up their trial balance. You can identify and do a trend analysis for them, and you can see the peaks and troughs in terms of the cost expenses that are there, the various heads that are there. Do you think that it's in line with the kind of industry that they are in? Are they have they rationally grown over the years, if I have to talk about? So maybe a startup we just started, say, this year as an example. When I say this year, in the sense 2024, maybe starting of January is where it started, and it's been 8 months. And within 8 months, you've seen a lot of fluctuation within the cost that's there, right? And that's something which you're not really very comfortable with, then that could be a trigger that that you have to do a detailed cost analysis. If the industry is not working in the same pattern, if the competitors are not working in the same pattern, then I think that's an area of trigger. The other area of trigger, again, there could be a niche area, right? Somebody, a startup which is there, which is not something that you can have a competition or you can get data analytics around. But still, you can do your deep dives, right? You can check the mechanisms in which they are procuring. Have they kept in mind the kind of um, you know, materials that are being there? Have they really picked up, from a, what to say, rationalization perspective? Have they picked up the lowest client, or were they really, because in startup, the other cost challenge that happens at times is also where, and that's another question that your stakeholders or your shareholders may ask you, or your investors may ask you, that is the money being siphoned, right, or being used for wrong purposes? And that's cost analysis tool will definitely help you understand each and every aspect. You will know that it's not an inflated cost. You will know how to manage your HR cost. You will know how to manage your product cost. You know how to manage the overhead cost, the rental aspects, various other aspects. Even in terms of, very, very easy picks are, as I say, which I've actually found within my own reviews at times. travel, travel costs as a very, very easy mechanism to help a company save in terms of it. Product costing, the right product costing needs to be seen. Cash flow management needs to be seen. And that's what, when you relate, and maybe I can compare that with the techniques when we talk about. So if we go directly into the techniques, as you can see here, the techniques that normally are used is having an activity-based costing or a cash flow analysis regularly done, a cost benefit analysis, the CBA, that you do. That is, are you really getting the benefit for the cost that you've spent, right? Or maybe the benefit is just half of the cost that's being spent, then are you really making the right choice? That's another aspect that you will have to see. Again, are you break even? Are you even breaking even with the expenditure that you're doing? How do you bring in efficiency? For example, your product that you're making is, you're making a product which is costing you, say, 150, and hence you would not want to sell it below 150, right? But something that's already available in the market is for 100, then why would people pay 150 to buy your product, right? What's your USP? That's what you will have to define and work, and that's where cost break-even analysis does help. Cost comparison analysis works, right? That if somebody else is doing it, or maybe think about, sometimes you have to really even think out of the box to say, okay, I am working out of Delhi as an example, or Delhi NCR as an example, but if I put the same, if my startup would have been, say, in Bangalore, would I have saved cost, right? Or is my customer base more Bangalore based, as an example? Or is my customer base more, Mumbai based, as an example? Or Hyderabad based, or Chennai based, or whatever? I don't know. Will that save my cost, right? It is not necessary that all your costs will go down. When you will do a cost comparison, you will understand that some costs are going up, some costs are going down. What is the percentage of change that is happening? Is that decision really something which is required to be done at this point in time, or are we okay to kind of live with it, or we just need a branch out there? So cost comparison is a very, very important tool. Everybody talks about cost benefit, cost break even, but I think, I personally feel cost comparison analysis is really, really important, whether it's a product cost comparison, location cost comparison, activity cost comparison, any kind of a comparison that you do on costs is very vital for the organization to use and input. The other thing is also the life cycle cost analysis. Okay, again, the life cycle, why we talk about is, sometimes a lot of people do not consider the cost of servicing, or the cost of the returns that I will get for my product, right? Because in today's time, you can't sell a product without any return option being given, or maybe a first year warranty being given, a whole support being given around that. And that costs sometimes really work, because maybe a batch of your production didn't go well and you get all rejects back. Or maybe people don't like your product in the first go and they kind of come back. And that return cost adds too much into the company's overall costing, which impacts the overall decision making and the growth of the company. Hence, total life cycle cost needs to be analyzed in detail. Some of the tools, and again, you don't need big tools around it. These could be just simple tools that you can have. It could be simple Google spreadsheets you could use. You could use Excel spreadsheets. You could use Google Forms as an example, right? Just for data gathering. And again, when that Google Forms data comes into you, you can automatically use it in Excel or pivots or various other data formats, which will give you a synopsis of the challenges that we're facing or the cost data that you got. A lot of the financial systems in today's time allow you to do cost analysis. QuickBooks, FreshBooks is just an example, but yes, this facility is also available with other, financial tools like Zoho, or you would say, Tally, and various others would also allow you to do that. You can use a lot of financial forecasting softwares. These forecasting softwares will help you understand how your cost trends will look in the future based on the different parameters. These softwares also actually use economic conditions at times, depending on the software. But if you're into a niche area, as an example, and maybe your product uses some kind of metals or things, then they would also give you the economic trend impact also in their financial forecasting methods. The other tools can also be your Power BI, Tableau, and various other aspects. And one very good tool which I feel I've used is around the parametric estimating. Because sometimes we forget estimating the parameters that are used for the cost analysis. And if my parameters go wrong, then definitely my cost analysis will go wrong. So that's another key aspect to be kept in mind. Okay, moving on, we've covered around cost analysis. I would like to cover around process maps, their types and tools. Again, process map flowcharts, we all know about flowcharts, right? We've seen flowcharts, we've done flowcharts ourselves as part of our educational curriculum. But really using flowcharts as part of process mapping is a very simple but a very strong tool, because it kind of gives you an idea of how things are flowing. You don't need too much of knowledge. You can just ask your client to do it because it's easy. You just have to explain them some of the key aspects like decision box, then the flow and various other things. And then half your work is being done by the client itself. So very easy, but a good tool. Swim lane diagrams, as we all know, just gives you the directions of things, how they are flowing. It also gives you an idea in terms of how many repeat tasks are being done, how many times the whole activity is going to and fro from the same person. You can use SIPOC diagrams. SIPOC, as we all know, is supplier input, process output, and customer format, which can be used, which will give you an idea of where the concentration is. And at times you've seen that the concentration which should actually be in the process is not within the process, and we have too many inputs or too many outputs that are being going on from them. Value stream maps, level 1, level 2, level 3 maps, which are there, which gives you more details within the same process. And you know how detailed there are. And then at times you may have to do multiple level 3 maps for the same level 1 that was drafted. Okay, so that's their data flow diagrams. Again, because a lot of things are going digital, when you have to review a process which is more technical or digital in a way, or you're looking at the system flow in terms of how the transaction is routed within, I want to say a financial tool, then definitely a data flow diagram helps a lot, because it gives you an holistic view in terms of where the data gets mined actually, what is really inputting, what is the outflow that's really coming in. So that, what are the conditions that the data is using at the back end? What is the understanding or the decisions which you've asked the data to do and then produce the output. So that data flow diagrams help. Again, some of the tools that are easily available, and I'm sure some of you must be using it, is Lucidchart, Microsoft Visio, Canva. I'm not talking, these are some of the new ones constantly being used for the last couple of years. And hence I'm talking about these at the moment. MindMaster, Draw.io, Kakao, and so these are some of the tools that we can talk about here. Moving on, again, very, very important for us to understand is what are the process mapping steps. We've talked about everything, but I think just 1 minute. Okay. Yeah, so that's my screen. So we've talked about what is process mapping, what's cost analysis, why it's important, what are the techniques, what are the tools that we can use. And now it's important to understand what are really the steps in a process mapping, right? And which is the key step that we will need to kind of deep dive, get detailed, and as I said, get into it and dirty your hands, in the sense, get involved with the client so that he or she also understands the challenges within the process which they had never looked. Okay, so first thing, definitely in any task that we start, we will first need to define what we are really looking at. Okay, so when you create the process map, you need to know that what are you creating it for. Do you want to estimate the time that's being spent in each of the activity? And you could have multiple goals. You could say that I want to see that what is my end-to-end process. Okay, how many steps does it take? How many man days does it take? At each step, what is the time that's involved? What is the resources that are involved? And I'll tell you the reason why we would do that. Okay. So for example, in the process map, you will write that in step one, you had, two people from HR as an example, one person from finance, three people from operations. You will also talk about the man hours or the man days that they spend within the process. Okay, so you will know how much is the layover between each one of them as an example. Okay, once you've defined the goals, then you will get the necessary people involved. Again, because as a chartered accountant or as a person who's consulting a company, you are more of an outsider. You can't from the outside create a map and give a solution, right? Because it will not be the right solution, right? So for example, if you're a doctor, if you're a patient and you walk into a doctor will evaluate you, right? It can't be that you're unwell and you send your spouse and you say, okay, inko dekh ke medicine de do. The condition of your spouse will not be your condition, right? Actually, your spouse may not be unwell at all. So, will the doctor give medicine? No. So, if you can't do that, so similarly, in a process mapping, till the time the people who are involved within the process do not give you inputs, it will not be a right activity. So, hence, getting everybody on board, getting everyone involved is very, very critical. Once you have everybody involved, maybe it is a half day activity to do the process mapping, or as I said, you can train your client and their team, and you can tell them that they can do their first draft of process map, and then you sit down with them. So it saves time for everybody together, and you've already evaluated and looked at things. Okay, the next is about listing all those tasks, right? Not missing on every activity. And a very good way of doing this task listing is just talk about what happens in a process if it's a monthly activity, as an example. Say what happens on the first of every month, what happens on the second of every month, what happens on the third of every month. Maybe go date wise, if people are not able to explain. And they may say, okay, step two continues for 3 days. So, okay, if step two happened on the second day and it continues for 3 days, which means no next step will not come beyond the fifth day. Then you ask, okay, then what happens on the fifth day? Does parallelly anything start within that time? So you will then see the interlinkages that will happen, right? When you start listing each and every activity. Because at a high level, when you go and ask people, they'll say, okay, yeah, I come, I start my day, I just open this and I do that and I do that. And then it is a very concise and a small process map. But when you do a detailed process map saying, okay, when you start the month, or you at times, you have to tell them, think that you were not doing the process or you didn't have any backlog. It's a new activity. And now, how will you start your work in the day? Okay, I want to shadow you. If I'm shadowing you, how do I know that I will be doing this on workday 5 as an example? What will be I doing? What will be I doing on, say, maybe workday 20th as an example, or pre-month close? One day workday -1. What will I be doing? So that kind of questions you will have to put in. And when you will kind of do that, then that is when your step 3 and step 4 will happen, which means you will list down every task, you will list down every role done by each person within the process. And you will also know in terms of which areas are involved within the process. Is this only an HR process, or do that HR activity? Maybe as an example, if I'm taking a process of, say, salary payments, right? Again, salary payments may not happen from workday 1 to workday 30 as an example. But what days is it happening? Is there an overlapping thing? Is there any challenges that you notice? So that things, and again, when they lies in this activity, in the process step, they may talk about the role that finance plays, right? When they may evaluate, HR may give everything to finance, and finance may actually be doing the final payment. Then you will know the timeline when they are involved in. Maybe the delay in the salary payment is not because the HR is not making the salary sheet on time. It is because that the finance is not really executing the sheet received from HR within a timely manner, or they're not reviewing it. The errors have happened because finance was not doing the role correctly. So you will identify such thing when you start listing every task and every what to say role. You will and then that's when you will identify challenges, or you will identify redundancies. You will identify uh, too much time that's consumed. You will identify the problems that are there. As I said, you will identify that the problem was not with the HR team, because everybody always thought that HR was delaying the salary sheet, and hence the employees felt that their salary was delayed. But while you identified this, you really saw that it was actually the finance team and not the HR team which was actually the culprit for a delay in the payments. Okay. And then it will also give you an idea in terms of how many times your process was going round in circles. Was there multiple changeover in terms of sharing the file, receiving queries, resending it again, then again receiving it, then again using a wrong file. So that's when you will also want to look at whether you want to reorder your task, right? When you want to change the sequence of tasks that are there. And those things will actually happen once you've put all of that. Then end of the day is when you will finally finalize your new process. You will share it with people, get it implemented within the process. And again, secondly, very very important is which is you've changed or implemented anything, but again, don't forget to monitor and review it for the next 1 or 2 months, depending on the cycle of the process. So if it's a daily activity, maybe you want to just review it for 3 to 4 days. If it's a monthly activity, maybe for 1 or 2 months. If it's a quarterly activity, for the next subsequent quarter, so that people remember. So depending on the task, a review mechanism is very, very, very important, because that's where the essence loses. But you've implemented something, you've decided, you've put in so much of effort, but end of the day, when you realize, you see that it didn't get implemented because people didn't follow it up. Nobody asked the question again. So hence the review and update and monitoring is very very important. Okay, we've talked of so much, but anything that we try and do, any change that we bring up, it's never easy, right? We always know that there's a challenge that's there. And as I have been saying quite often now, the challenges that we see from founders or startup owners or even MSME owners, because sometimes they're only just single persons who are doing it, right? And then they may just want to say, oh, it's like, let's not do it. It's taking too much time. I don't have time and effort for doing it. So you will face challenges, and some of the top challenges that we understand is, especially from a cost analysis perspective, is you will not get the data. People will not have data, right? And then you'll have to sit down with them at times, and you will have to create that data for them. Okay. They may say, okay, I'm sorry, I don't know how that data will get consolidated. I do not know how this will happen. So you may have to handhold the client much more. It's an easy way to say that I don't have data, so just make it. But you just can't make something which is not available. Hence, you will have to spend in that time to sit down with them to gather the data for direct costs, indirect costs, all types of costs. You're not missing out. So you will have to match it with your trial balance and see, okay, the trial balance has so many cost heads, but when I got cost data, I just got it for, say, a limited number of heads. Why so? So that analysis again will be required to be done. So that's always a big challenge. Again, process mapping. When we do process mapping, we see people very much Either people will go too detailed, so detailed that that you will start saying, no, 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 let's not go to that level. Let's say maybe a one level up is what I'm looking at. Or you will find businesses which will talk only about, like, 350,000 feet level is what they will talk about. Either people are too high from a process mapping perspective, or they're too detailed. So really hitting the right balance is very big a challenge. And as a chartered accountant and as a consultant, that's the role that you need to play. And you have, you know, s- the biggest role that a chartered accountant plays in this is steering the ship, as I say. So it's like you have the radar in your hand and you have to just steer it in the right direction so that the work is being done. The other challenge always is cost and time pressure, right? Because even when you do a task, you will not be doing it for free, right? Or the other way to look at cost is also that people will spend their time with you, which means that they will take away time from their own processes, which means that they may need to put in some extra hours, which will mean overtimes for the processes, which means extra costs in the processes. And also, again, the time pressure, because people will say, oh, it's my month end, I can't spend time with you. It's a delivery time. It is, I have a consignment going. I have this, I have that. So you will find n number of excuses there. But those challenges will have to be overcome. And I think we normally see that because we're a support system for a company. And the biggest thing I think why the challenge happens is because they don't see the outcome possible, right? They don't know what they're really running for. And therefore, telling them what this whole exercise is going to get them will be very important. You will have to first hook them that why this is needed, what could be a possible outcome. So if you tell your founder that I'll be able to give you 10% more profit if you do this exercise, I'm sure he or she will want to do this activity, because that 10% profit is a great thing. It will help him work with the shareholders, stakeholders. He'll be happier with his work, and hence he'll be interested. So getting them hooked to the result will be more important, and hence the challenges will automatically reduce. Okay. The other thing that I would say is, and again, this is a practical tip, or you can say an advice when you start implementing it. So now you've overcome the challenges, you've got your person hooked. But again, so that this is just to help you do smart work, right? Rather than hard work, it is actually where you can just start with very simple thing. So again, today I may say that I want, let's go on a expedition to Mount Everest. See, when we climb the Mount Everest, our names will be published, this and that. But when we start walking, the people with me in the team will start saying, yeah, that is going to take so long. Let me just withdraw from here itself. Why am I going? So, but if we start simple with just capturing the first smallest peak and advertising it, then that will be a area which people will be interested in. People say, yeah, I achieved this. Why can't I go and achieve the Mount Everest also? Why not that peak also? So, which means start simple. Take a process which will have a high impact, but maybe less time consuming for yourself. Don't suggest some high cost tools to your founder, right? If you tell him that, okay, let's do this activity, but for that, your company will have to invest into this, you will have to buy a tool, which will have to this, then he'll say, oh, already, you're talking about a 10% cost, profit increase, but all of these tools will only cost me, say, maybe 2% of my revenue, which means that my profits will further reduce. Then what is the use? So first start with using all the available resources. What's already available? Use the tools that you may have, something which is free of cost. That is what you can start with. And then go into kind of take in subscriptions or further enhance on the tools that are there. So that will definitely help. Again, involving the stakeholder, as I said, is very, very important, because when the stakeholder is driving it, right? When you give that bait even to your board of example, or the management committee, they will really be supportive of you. They will want you to start sharing those results with them, and that's when things will become easier for you as a consultant to help support on this. Okay, and without saying, I think I've already emphasized saying that the regular review is very, very important, because while you're reviewing your own work, you will need to see a change or an adjustment in the strategy that you may want to do as you go forward. Okay, so it's important to do that. So I think that's a summary of what I had to cover. I think I've covered a lot in detail. A key takeaways for me, which comes out of this whole conversation, is that cost analysis definitely improves my overall budgeting, resource management, financial planning, business growth, and I can go on and on together. Right? Process mapping again optimizes my workflow, team coordination, my efficiency, productivity, and also as I said, both of them together, cost analysis and process mapping, they together form a foundation for the company to get a scalable growth, right? We will be in a position to get benefits of these tools or these areas only if they are implemented. If we keep talking about anything, it will never work, right? Only when you get to the ground level, implement these and make them as your essential tools for reviews and analysis. That is when these key aspects will really become value added aspects. And then from value added, these will get into the regular tools that a startup founder will start asking. And over a period, I think because of the focus that these tools have started to get in, there are even founders who can actually reach out. If you if as chartered accountants you all are looking for some kind of what to say, project work, this is a great tool or a great project tasks that founders really look for. So if you're registered on any of the sites for work, then I think you can put cost analysis, process mapping, process review as one of your activities also, because people are reaching out for these activities, and they are seeing the benefits. And as I say, these tasks can only be done by using experts, because if you just do it for the heck of doing it, like maybe ticking in a checklist or something, or showing that I was doing something, but effectively I was not doing anything, then your business growth will not happen. It will stay as is. You may still say that I did my cost analysis, but it will show out on your financials. You will know whether anything was done or not done basis your data. And as I say, financials are the mirror of the actions that are done at the business level, right? So if you've not done anything to improve your processes, to optimize your costs, your financials will still show the gloomy face it was, or it will not show a more happier face. If you are still earning a profit and you're happy with the profit, then okay, fine, go ahead with that. But if you want to bring in growth, you want expansion, you want to spread across in areas, then you definitely need to embrace the value added activities that a chartered accountant can offer. And these are just two activities that I've taken, but there could be multiple more that can be done based on the requirement. And again, how deep to go within that activity will depend upon will depend upon the startup, will depend upon the challenges that the startup is facing, the depth upon the commitment that the management wants to give on these activities, right? So I think that was an holistic summary of the tools that we talked about. These are some things that we can, I can keep talking endlessly on these, But I think that's a good summary. And again, as I said in the start of the conversation, that I am doing this session mostly from a perspective as chartered accountant looking for better and newer opportunities, business opportunities. But again, it is not a limit for that, because there's a same learning from a startup owner perspective. If you want to be a founder, or if you are really a startup founder at the moment, and you are looking to how to save your financials, then please look at your costs, right? Look at not only the growth or the revenue, but also it's like sometimes I feel that if you've not done cost analysis in the right way, then it's like having termites within your own process. They will eat you from inside. Extra layers of process, or maybe time consumed in the process, will just eat up your whole benefits. If I have to put that in a very layman language, if you make up a very nice almirah, a wooden almirah, but you don't treat it, or you don't invest in terms of looking at it, then and you get termites attached to the wood, then the whole almirah will get impacted, and what to say, like close down, or it may break down, just because you've not really taken care of the termites on the right. So same thing, cost analysis and process mapping are two great key tools which should be used by everyone, so that they are well managed. So I think that's it for me from my side. I would be happy, and I've kept this flow, concise, so that we can take in more questions from all of you. And happy to kind of take in questions. Ashi, are you there? Do we have any questions coming in from the participants? The institute team? Okay, let me then spend some more time here in terms of maybe how should cost analysis be done? I did talk about the various tools that are done, but I think what cost analysis needs to be done also is that you need to look at um, and let me take a case example, as I said, the life cycle cost analysis. One of my clients actually got into a deal of collaborating with a partner to sell its product. Okay, so my client is the one who makes the product, and to find opportunities for sale or growth, to increase revenue, they were not only using e-commerce platforms, but they also tied up with a complementary product company, wherein their product was, I would say, supplemented with the product that was sold. So my client, say client A, contracted with client B, who was selling a product which would need product A, and hence they signed up a contract. Okay, and because it was a bulk contract, they gave them a bulk discount. So the MRP for the product, say for example, was 5,000. The cost price as calculated by my client was, say, 2,000, and they were expecting a profit of 3,000 on each product. And when they contracted with the bulk buyer, they said, okay, we'll give it to you for 4,000. We'll still earn a profit of 2,000. And, they signed up the contract. They went ahead. But when the sales happened and the revenue started flowing in, they really felt that they were just left with 1,000 profit and not the 2,000 profit per product that they had envisaged. And the reason was because the point was that the product sales had some challenges, and there was a lot of return or the questions that were coming in from the seller side. So the product was sold at 4,000, and that's the bed discount that we gave the bulk buyer. But the return cost, or you would say the service cost was not shared. It was all borne by ourselves itself, the same customer, the producer, and hence we were also earning a profit of 1,000, and the person who really was just doing trading also earned 1,000, which was not really what we had envisaged. We had envisaged that we'd at least have double the profit than what it was. So that's when we learned, okay, that deal did go through, but the next deal when we did, we were more beneficial, okay, and we included the cost of servicing, returns, and everything, and hence the product was better utilized. And as I said, it was just accidental that I happened to talk, and I was on a different work, but when we were talking about the deal that was happening, and I was supporting them only on the deal actions. And that's when we said, okay, and I did this separate project for them of cost analysis. And it was like, again, it was a deal breaker for me too, because I got a more permanent client as compared to just a project client. So these are some of the activities that really help and kind of come in. Ashi, are you available? The CA team? If there are So I think we've covered a lot of these topics in terms of going through in terms of what process mapping helps us, what are the tools that can be used, what can be the techniques that are there, um, what are the various aspects that can be covered. I think we've already done that. Maybe I can pick up some questions if you don't have questions coming in at the moment. Uh, Let me answer, because these questions come to me at times, and people ask me around the questions that why would a founder really get into cost analysis? He is happy with what he's doing, so why will he spend that extra time and effort? Because that's one of the challenge, as we said. So I think I've in earlier also explained around it, and I said that it's important for us to kind of get the team to really, or the startup founder to get hooked on the idea, right? Because till the time they don't get hooked on to your idea of what the benefit that's going to be doing, it will not help. Okay. So I told you, right? Why do the startups need it? Okay. The startups need the cost analysis because it's going to help them in terms of their cost control, cost reduction, profit improvability, decision making, various other aspects. So hence, it is very, very important to have a cost analysis done. Process mapping, as I said, again, very, very important because productivity. If you spend more time in terms of production, it means it is more time and cost which is there for a company, right? So again, linkage that I can talk about, that is important. Okay, risk management. If you're already doing risk management, and I'm sure as part of risk management, some of the process mappings you would have done. Okay, so that's there. Um, Another question that I get from people is that you've mentioned in terms of your advice or a practical tip that start with high impact areas. So how will you know what's a high impact area? Okay, so there is an activity which is done, which is called significant account mapping, right? So if you're looking at your trial balance, your P&L or your balance sheet, you would know which are your key accounts, right? Which are the accounts that are contributing to the actions or to the revenue, to the cost of a company. And that's when you could pick up those, what to say, um, so we've actually completed the whole chart. Not sure whether we have questions coming in from the participants. Ashi, are you on the call? I don't see you at the moment. Yeah, so we've completed the whole presentation. Can we have questions now? Okay, so till the time Ashi is asking questions, let me take some questions as I was saying. So again, sorry for the interruption there. So the other question that I get is, who's a relevant stakeholder, right? Whom should we involve? Okay, so here I would say that a relevant stakeholder would mean definitely if it's a small company, you need your founder or your co-founder because they will see the value in the activity that's being done. Okay, you will need the process owners if you're doing like maybe an operations process, the ops head, because end of the day, any changes, any activities that or gaps that you identify will come as part of the same thing, will come back as part of the same process, and hence we will need the relevant stakeholders. So as much as senior members you involve within the process will be the people who will actually get involved and give you the impact. Yeah, hi Ashi.
Yes, there was some connection error. I was trying to connect, but my computer was malfunctioning.
No problem. No problem. So we've completed the session in terms
Yeah,
of
yeah,
the
yeah. I heard
presentation.
that. I was hearing it, but then I was not able to speak.
No
Uh,
problem. So I've taken a couple of questions which I
yeah,
normally get from people.
yeah.
Uh, Myself. If you think there are any more that have come up which we've not covered, then please do kind of let me know and I can stop sharing this, I guess, because we can then come back to normal question answers.
Yes. So the basic thing that there's one question which is like, what are the most important factors that you do when you analyze the cost benefits?
The most important factors that we understand is basically the costs that are there, which are actually impacting my process. So I can't just say that I have to cut down on all costs, right? There are some critical costs, and at times you have to go to a level of higher costs also for those because they're very critical. So, for example, if I say that I need a legal lawyer in this, I can't say that I will get a legal lawyer only if I get it at X cost, right? I will have to give the lawyer
Yeah.
the value that is required. So hence, it will all depend on the process of the activity that we are talking about and whether it is cost reduction, cost optimization. And within your own process, automatically, when you're looking at processes, and hence it's very much important to do data analytics from a cost perspective also. That what has been the trend of the cost? What is the market cost? Is there something that you're really paying too high from from the market that's there, right? Because or you're paying too low. So maybe you got some I would say employees who've come at a lower cost just because they were without a job, as an example, but they are your probable expectations that they may immediately leave you as soon as they kind of get a higher salary job, which means that either you start paying at the right timeline, at the right pricing, which is the market price, so that people are satisfied in the roles that they do. So the cost parameter will be need to be understood based on the process that is there and the activity that.
Which of these costs are some of them which one can avoid so that the cost does not go very high? There are some basic costs that which a person has to do and cannot cut down on that. But there are some costs which are avoidable. Can you share a list of those as well?
So as I said, avoidable costs again is one in terms of timely, ensuring that your purchases are made at the right time, at the right home. You're not doing at a last minute cost, because when you do last minute, you have to pay higher pricing, right? Or you don't have multiple rounds of purchases that are being done, right? See, because cost reductions or cost optimization can be done in what areas? Either your sourcing areas, wherein you kind of getting inputs, or you're paying your employees, as an example, or you're paying your vendors and various other things, right? These are the areas where you could do your cost optimization. So if one is on the sourcing point of the procurement size, definitely go in with the best deal. right? Which when I mean is do a tender costing, see whether you've got the L1 costing or not. That's one part of it. The other is whether the timelines at which you're ordering, the quantum at which you're ordering, that you don't have to keep, instead of getting, say for example, and that's where even CBA or cost benefit analysis helps. You may say that I may want to get my raw material once in a month, but you don't have space to store it, which means your storage cost is higher to the procurement cost. Then from a cost weighted average perspective, you may want to say, okay, let me order 2 times because I'm not increasing my storage cost, as an example. Or if I have to talk about from an employee cost perspective, then are we hiring at the right people? So do we really need, what kind of an experienced people do? What is the skill set? Uh, can we really work with a skill set which is one notch lower, as an example? Will that hamper my overall productivity or not? Can I groom that person to go to the next level, as an example? So I may, just as an example, I may, because I'm a startup, I don't need a CFO who's actually 30 years of an experience, right? I'm okay to start with a CFO who's maybe 7 or 10 years of an experience, and then groom him to kind of go bigger, or as I grow. So automatically your costs will get optimized. So these are not unavoidable, I would say, but these are costs which are not as necessary, but these can be weighted and discussed and then taken upon. Again, a very, very simple and easy example is your travel costs, where it's not necessary your outstation travel or various other travels, even your normal travel costs, right? Or your staff welfare costs. Those could be some of the other costs that you may want to see whether you really want to incur them at this stage or not, as an example. So yeah.
Thank you, ma'am, for explaining it so well. Another question is that what is an alternative to cost benefit analysis?
Alternative to cost benefit analysis, again, as I said, there is no alternative, right? Every activity or every technique has its own benefit, right? Cost benefit analysis, as I said, gives you an idea that if you're spending 1 rupee, what is the benefit that you're getting out of it? Are you able to get a 1 rupee benefit, or you're getting more than 1 rupee benefit, or you're getting lesser benefit, right? So if you're let me just take a very simple example and maybe a daily life example. You're thirsty, right? And you're getting water at 2 rupees, as an example, but you're getting Coke at 1 rupee, right? Will you buy Coke or will you buy water? You will still buy water even if it is 2 rupees, because that will quench
That
your
will
thirst, right? It is not that I'm saving 1 rupee by buying Coke, because I know that even if I buy Coke and I drink at 1 rupee, in another 15-20 minutes I will still feel thirsty and I will again have to spend 2 rupees, which means end of the day I will end up spending 3 rupees as compared to only spending 2 rupees. So cost benefit analysis is always beneficial. So there's no alternative. But yes, your cost benefit analysis can be supported by various cost analysis also, various other types of cost analysis. So there is no substitute for cost analysis, if I have to say.
Then there's a question that what is the difference between cost benefit analysis and payback period?
Okay.
It's
So I have cost benefit analysis I've already explained, so I
Yeah.
don't think I'll say that. But payback period is that if you invested a rupee 1 at the moment, by when you will get the benefit of that 1 rupee. Okay. So which means that you've invested today, like cost benefit analysis will say how much benefit you will get. A payback will say that benefit will come over how much period. Okay. So will that, and again, maybe taking the same example of Coke and water, the cost benefit analysis says going into buying water is better because it will give me an instant payback at the same time, and that when my thirst will get quenched for the next 2 hours, as an example, right? The payback period there will be like 2 hours. That's how I would say. So that's the difference between payback and cost benefit. So again, they will have to go together and they will have to be supported. Your NPV will also change based on your payback.
Yeah, that's true. Then I think we've covered a few questions in this only. And there's again a question that what is the difference between ROI and cost benefit analysis?
So again, cost benefit we've talked about. ROI is the return on your investment,
Yes.
right? Which is what you've invested and how much are you getting in return. So cost benefit analysis will help support managing a higher ROI for you, right? But again, they're all independent activities. They are linked, but they're not supplementary or complementary is what I would say. They will still go together.
The next question is related to the process mapping. What questions to ask when we are process mapping?
So I said, right, I did cover that earlier.
Yeah.
Process mapping means first you need to understand what are you process mapping for, right? What is your goal? You want to find out redundancies in terms of time. You want to find out redundancies in terms of um, costs. You want to find challenges in terms of uh, how the process is going. Is it a smooth flow? Is this complicated? Can I simplify the process? Will that help the company in what way? So once you define that, that's when your questions will come in, right? As I said, you may have to sit down with the process owner and say, tell me day 1 क्या करते हो, day 2 क्या करते हो, day 3 क्या करते हो, day 4 क्या करते हो. So chronologically you will have to go and put in every steps, and that's when your complete process map will actually get created.
Ma'am, I think there is some connection issue. The video and voice is lagging.
Okay, I think your side froze.
Now,
But I think, do you want me to repeat that again?
No, that's fine. Probably then my connection issue. Then the other question is, what makes you a good fit for a startup?
Again, your own ability makes you the best fit. So let me put this question: why do chartered accountants become a best fit for startups? I think that question should be framed as this. Uh, as I always say, chartered accountants are whole-roundedly trained for all aspects. They don't only do your financial accounting, auditing, everything, but they also help you in terms of your risk management, taxation, legal, ROC compliances. They will also help you in terms of connecting with bankers, reaching out to investors, VC meetings. So they can talk to you. They can talk to everybody, each and every person, right? As ever senior that person is. They also in today's time help in support organize startups from an ESG perspective, right? ESG reporting is a very great and a new tool, and a chartered accountant is well versed to even handle that. Can handle your BRSR reporting, can handle to give you, creation of controls, assurance testing, as we say, various other things. So a chartered accountant, it's just that you have everything. It is just how are you able to display it to the right person so that you become the right fit. That's how I would say.
I think this also covers up the most important thing for a startup as well.
Yeah, automatically. So I think
Yes.
another thing I can say is the startup world, as we all talked about, they themselves are quite new into this area, the founders, the management, and all of that.
Yeah.
So they are also looking for support to help them guide, and if you get attached to a startup, you actually handhold them from really starting and just doing, 1,000 rupees of revenue to $1,000 of revenue, sorry, 1,000 crores of revenue. That kind of level is what you can support them, because it will be your steering ability to take them forward, along with the business acumen of the founder, definitely.
We learn a lot from startups rather than a developed or a developing company.
Agreed. I agree.
Then I think one question is, what is the meaning of unicorns?
Okay, so unicorn, I already mentioned, anyone which has a valuation of over $1 billion is a unicorn. Nowadays, there are so many types of unicorns. When I say, no, I should not say unicorns, cons, because now you have sunicorns also coming in.
Yeah, there are a lot of terms coming up nowadays.
Right, right. So since I mentioned Sunicorn, so Sunicorn is nothing but a company or a startup which is soon to become a unicorn is called a Sunicorn. Okay, so which is
Wow.
probably to become a unicorn is a Sunicorn.
Right. So I think we have covered almost all the questions. Do you think that there can be any
Yeah,
other
one my
topic?
question is last. I will just ask you, ma'am, Ruchi, ma'am, personally one question from my side.
Right?
If I having a business and I importing in Bhutan
Mm.
electrical parts and I don't have I had just only having a GST number. Okay, but I my company is not registered anywhere. I don't having any trademark over it. So how can I grow up and increase my business?
So one, you need to, you're registered in India, right? And you are importing from Bhutan or you're exporting to Bhutan?
No, no, I export from India to Bhutan.
Export from India to Bhutan, right? Yeah. So one, you will then the biggest idea to grow is first you will need to see that why did you not touch the India market? You know, why did you really jump to only Bhutan? Because if it's a product which was there, the easiest fit could have been first being in India. So I think the growth opportunity for you will, as a business, will first to be exploring market. Sorry, you're not audible at the moment.
Actually, I first export in India, but uh, now audible to me.
Yeah, yeah, you are now audible. Tell me.
Hello, ma'am is audible.
Yeah, you're breaking in between. Tell me.
Ma'am, I approach India. I approach also in India in south side and on north side and many parts of India. I'm saying I approach many state of India,
Okay. So now you want to grow into Bhutan? That's your
but
question?
I didn't receive any money from them.
Okay. I think here you will
So
have to
that
sit down and
doing
look.
business in Bhutan.
Right. So here you will have to sit down and understand
Sorry.
what were the challenges that you faced during the process. Why was the money not received? Was it that the contracts were not done in a manner that was to be kind of considered? Okay. What is the challenge that was there? You know, so was it your cost was too high, your revenue was too low, or your revenue was too high and you not really contracted? So again, this question is more on the business side. And again, on the business side, you will have to sit down and look at your overall process, you know, overall business strategy, and why you are taking it. So in India, what was the challenge and why did you not get your money, as an example? So were this because that you had some credit limit already defined and you will
No,
get it
no.
at a
I just
better?
want to ask you whether I have to register a trademark or means have to make मेरे को अपनी वेबसाइट बनानी चाहिए या फिर वो सब कुछ करना चाहिए उसको पॉपुलर करने के लिए या फिर
वो तो डेफिनेटली सर, अगर आपको कोई भी चीज को प्रोपोगेट करना है, बिकॉज इंडिया में तो आप फिर भी, अगर आप सपोज दिल्ली में हो और दिल्ली में ही प्रोग्राम कर रहे हो, आप फ्लायर्स भेज सकते हो अपने आसपास। बट बाहर के देश को कैसे आप बताओगे? बाहर के देश को क्या, बाहर के स्टेट को भी आप कैसे बताओगे? आउट ऑफ दिल्ली फॉर एग्जाम्पल, हाउ विल यू टेल पीपल? Right, for that either you will have to do some marketing campaign. In today's time it's much easier to do it on Insta as an example, or maybe YouTube or various other things. But again, you will have to give a reference to people about a website, right? Because again, along with that, there's so much fraud happening that nobody will rely till the time they see some authenticated stuff, right? So
yes,
a
yes,
brand
you're right.
page, a brand page
Mm-hmm.
which is there, details about who's the
Mm-hmm.
founder, what is the background of the founder, what is the product they're doing, what are the companies that they're associated with, what are the linkage that they're doing with.
तो रिगार्डिंग दैट what I have to do? तो फिर मैं वही तो पूछूं रिगार्डिंग फॉर दैट व्हाट आई हैव टू डू?
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. So you will have to create all of that. Maybe if you want, you can associate with any of the content creators or the marketing companies who can help you with all of that. And along with that, you will also need to ensure ki how much is that going to impact me from an overall costing perspective also, right? Because end of the day, आप इतना भी cost incur नहीं कर सकते ना कि जितना revenue recovery ना हो. मतलब बाद में वही वाला impact ना हो जाए. So that analysis you will have to sit down and do with your own business and see how that is evaluated. But your face of the company has to happen, right? And especially an authenticated website is very, very important with the data analytic, with the data of the founders and various other people, your
Okay.
clients as an example. Because आज अगर मैं भी किसी नई कंपनी के साथ जाती हूँ, because that's another challenge which startups face. I'm not sure whether I should go forward and give money in the first go because I am not sure whether I've given the money and I don't get a product in later, right? And that is why the place of e-commerce in comes in, right? If you have a product, why don't you tie up with the e-commerce platforms, right? You become a seller on the e-commerce platforms like Amazon, Flipkart, various other things that can also help you get growth without really actually spending too much on marketing directly. That could be another way because they also have, yeah. You're not audible, sir.
So you are still not audible.
How can we start a business in e-commerce if I having a like e-commerce business?
You're
I'm saying that how
I
can
think we have
I grow my business according to e-commerce?
So on e-commerce, definitely on all the marketplaces, you can
Hello,
just have your product listed on your marketplaces. They do
hello,
take a share of the
hello,
earnings. Hello, am I audible?
hello.
Yes, ma'am, you are.
Okay. So
Hello.
I think it's not audible to them, but okay. So what do we, I think when you want to list yourself on e-commerce platforms, you can definitely get associated with them. They will charge a revenue, but then they become your brand ambassadors because if it's an assured partner, as an example, if you get good comments there, then automatically your visibility on those platform increases. People start, you kind of get uh, from a search perspective, also you come higher on the search. You can do sponsored ads on that website also, which means your product will get listed much faster and it will showcase to all people who are looking for select stuff. So these are other options that you can grow and look at various aspects.
I think, ma'am, you've extensively covered all the topics, and our viewers also have listened to it very carefully and understood the topic really well.
Thank you.
I am at the end of my questions. Answer, do you have any other question?
So I think one question that I get normally from people, which I think I did cover a bit, was on
Yes, sure.
how is, you know, how much cost analysis and process mapping should be tied together. Okay.
Okay.
Or how can they be, how should they
What?
be seen together, as an example? And that's when I say that because see, process mapping is one aspect that you're doing. But when you're doing that aspect, keep in mind all necessary challenges that a company can face. And cost is definitely an item of concern for companies. And hence, when you're looking at, improving the process as an example, or you're looking at reducing the time in any of the activities, everything implies the benefit from a financial perspective, right? It will be in decreased cost to the company. And that is what needs to be explained and called out also as at the time of process mapping. And hence, I would say cost analysis and process mapping go hand in hand also. So that was an additional question which I felt people asked me.
That's great, ma'am. So Devang sir, any other insights or questions that you want to add or ask? I think he's still not audible.
No, there is no any additional question.
Okay, I think
I'm saying there is no any additional question.
Okay. So he's saying that there are no there are not further
no
questions or
additional
any
questions. Yeah.
questions.
Okay.
So I think we
You
can
audible to me?
So I think that we have come to the end
There
of
is
this.
no any.
Yeah, we're just concluding the session, Devang.
Yeah. So I would like to thank you, ma'am, for the very intricate and valuable session that you've given us. I would also thank the committee for organizing such a wonderful session and helping us learn a lot from the startups and
Yes.
this era of the startup. So big thank you to all the participants as well for joining us and making this event a success. We look forward to many more such events. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks to the institute, the committee, and the participants to be hearing me patiently and having great questions. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Bye. Take care.